Windsor West.
Speaker, it's always an honour to rise on behalf of my constituents of Windsor West to speak to any bill that comes before this House, any issue. And I'm going to start by building on what the member from Essex touched on, which was two cases fairly close to home. One was right in my city, and the other was in a neighbouring riding. And the first was Teresa Vince. Teresa Vince was an HR training administrator in a Sears store in downtown Chatham. And for years, many years, she was harassed by her immediate boss. Teresa was a wife, mother, and a grandmother who just went to work every day to try and provide for her family, and was subjected to, on a regular basis, harassment from her boss. It ended with that particular employer, that supervisor, shooting Teresa to death and then taking his own life. And that mirrors a similar situation with a nurse in Windsor, specifically in my riding, Laurie DuPont, who we just actually recognized that 10 years ago, November 12th, so just recently we recognized the 10-year anniversary of Laurie's passing. Similar situation. In this case, it was a doctor, Dr. Mark Daniel, who Laurie had dated for some time and had broken off the relationship and continued to be harassed by this ex-boyfriend of hers. And faced issues on a daily basis, but again, had to go to work to provide, had to make a living, and as with most victims, feel like they have no choice but to continue to put up with this behaviour in order to just get by and just make a living. That case as well ended with this doctor taking Laurie's life, and then he took his own. And it's unfortunate that we continue to see a pattern of workplace violence, workplace harassment. Many of us just recognized the 26th anniversary of the shooting at École Polytechnique, where 14 women were killed just because they were women. The member from Windsor-Tecumseh, unfortunately I was out of country, so I couldn't attend, but he just went to a memorial put on by Unifor, Local 444 in our area, where they recognized the death of a co-worker, Mary Lou, who was also a victim of sexual harassment and assault, who unfortunately her life ended as well. So I think that it is incumbent upon all of us to not just teach our kids that to just say no, not to just teach our kids that our sons and daughters that it's okay to say no. We need to teach them that when someone says no to them, that no is no. We need to teach our kids that regardless of what obstacles you face in the workplace, you have a right to say, I'm not comfortable here. And you have to be a strong advocate for yourself, and you have to reach out to others to help you advocate. Often the victims of workplace violence and sexual harassment don't feel like they have any allies. They don't feel like they have anyone to turn to. So we need to encourage those that, in workplaces such as ours, that if they're facing such behaviour, if they have issues or they suspect that someone else in the workplace is going through something like this, that they need to come forward and they need to support the person that's going through it and let them know that they do have support when they do finally feel comfortable coming forward. This bill has gone through committee and consultations, and I personally would like to thank everyone who appeared before the committee. And it wasn't easy for many of them to come share their stories, to relive what it is that they've been through. Luckily, they can say that they did survive it. It leaves scars. They're going to have, they're going to be dealing with this probably for the rest of their lives. But they survived it, and they were able to muster up the courage. And it takes a lot of courage for them to come forward and share with people they don't know, strangers, what it is that they went through, share their stories and ask for help. And so I commend everybody that was comfortable coming forward and sharing their stories. And frankly, I'd like to commend the committee as well, because I I'm certain that it was not easy for them to listen to those stories and hear the horrible acts that were perpetrated on those that came forward and presented. Those will leave, I'm sure, scars on those people on the committee who listened to those terrible stories as well. Again, I'd just like to thank everybody who sat on the committee, is sitting on the committee, and anyone that has had the bravery to come forward and try and make changes for the better for those that come after them. We know that social media, especially with school-age children, has become often the chosen venue for harassment. What we don't talk about often is sometimes, and it's interesting because I just had a conversation with someone from the education sector about this yesterday, we don't realize that sometimes it's the students in the system that are actually, probably unknowingly, sexually harassing teachers. They don't realize that some of the comments they make are uncomfortable and inappropriate. So we need to make sure that the kids, starting at a very young age, understand what is and is not appropriate behaviour, so that they don't become adults who go on to model the behaviour of others before them. And we need to make sure that if they have something going on in their own personal life, if there's something going on with a family member, that they feel supported, that they know they can come to school and share those stories and perhaps get help for whoever it is in their family that needs help. Speaker, while we welcome the legislation that's before us today, as an effective opposition party, we have a duty to point out how legislation could be improved, to reflect on what's not in a piece of legislation and hold the government of the day accountable. And as New Democrats, we'll be watching closely to make sure that this legislation comes with funding commitments and that it is regularly assessed and reported. And I think that's a key piece to any legislation. You could put the legislation forward with all the best intentions, but if there isn't, in some cases, the funding to follow that up, or if there isn't monitoring of that legislation, you don't know how effective that legislation is. So it's important that a piece of legislation like this does have follow-up to see how effective it is. As we progress, we are in a big age of, as I said, social media. We didn't have that years ago. So we need to make sure that as we go through the years, legislation like this is monitored to make sure that it's still effective. It might need to be changed. It may need to be tweaked as the years go by, and we need to make sure that it's still effective in supporting and protecting the people that it was meant to serve. And I think that it's, again, Speaker, to reiterate, I think it's really important that those people in a work environment know that they have a right to say, I don't feel safe here. They have a right to go to their employer and feel like they're supported, that they feel that the people around them support them. This is not, for somebody who's going through it, is not an easy thing for them to do, to reach out and ask for help. And we need to make sure that any legislation that is in place is solid legislation, it's effective legislation, it's monitored legislation, and that when the time comes, because, as I said, things have changed a lot over the years, when the time comes, that adjustments are made to make sure that it's effectively serving the people that it was meant to serve. Thank you, Speaker.